Erin Lawler-Patterson, the Goodness Chick. I'm a podcaster, motivational speaker, author, counselor, and proud part of the Mental Health News Radio Network. Join me on the journey of navigating the joys and pitfalls of life, addressing mental health, addiction, raising kids, and giving back. If it takes a village, then join me as one of those villagers. Villagers wanted. Today's episode, Getting Psychedelic in the UK. I am really excited and encouraged by today's guest, Becca Coxon. She is a film freelance director, producer based in the United Kingdom. She joins me today, took time away from her busy schedule to sit down and kind of break down aspects and the realities of mental health, as well as alternative medicine and the need for more accessible treatment for those who are hurting. We kind of hit on a whole bunch of different topics. She's a woman with a whole lot of insight, wisdom, and just a phenomenal background when it comes to her passion to bringing light to things we can kind of sometimes get uncomfortable talking about, and she's able to do that through the art of film. She's an ambassador for those who are too often withheld from having their voice heard. And she provides a platform for these people, man, in some amazing ways, from mental health, domestic violence, and alternative medicine, really a whole gamut of things. She reels in issues that are personalized. She personalizes them and provides really an insider's view to struggles, challenges, and victories that are too often not seen by the general public. So she recently released a documentary on the potential value in psychedelic medicine as a future viable form of treatment for those who are suffering from mental illness. This documentary is powerful, it's informative, and it really addresses a topic that some might meet with judgment or be uncomfortable with, but I encourage you, I provided the link in the notes below to check it out. It's really powerful stuff, and it's something that Becca went in as a reporter. She participated in this to kind of really obviously get the full experience, but also to be able to journal and document and then interact with people and kind of get their insight and their thoughts and opinions. She is truly an amazing human being who has seen a whole lot and is now kind of going to throw out some of her wisdom, her insights, and her kernels of goodness. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. But I also want to give a real powerful shout out and thanks to our sponsor, Fire Mountain Residential Treatment Center, located in Colorado, working on the front lines for our young people when it comes to mental health and addiction who are hurting, need the support and treatment. And this place is just good stuff, my friends. Check them out at firemountainprograms.com. What led you into the field of not only directing and producing, but kind of focusing and bringing light to issues that sometimes make us uncomfortable?
Well, when I graduated from university, I was volunteering a lot for mental health charities, various mental health charities, and I knew I wanted to work in the media. I got on a BBC trainee scheme, and they sort of said to us, you should work in the field of television that you watch the most of. And I realised that I love documentaries. I love sort of the weird and the wonderful, and the idea that films could help people. That sort of appealed a lot more to me than just the purely entertainment side. I started working at the BBC, and the first thing I actually worked on was about it was a film about Moby Dick, so it was a drama, and I just found it really tedious and
not my thing.
Like 1,000 people for one scene,
Wow.
and then when I discovered documentaries, and it was sort of like, one person holding the camera and being there and creating relationships with the contributors, and the more I sort of got into that world, and it just felt way more real. It was like you were in the film yourself, and you didn't know what was going to happen, and it was, you were dealing with real people and real people's lives, and it's always a privilege to give people a voice who are otherwise not heard, who don't get a chance to be represented so much. So I started working on things like murder documentaries and crime related things, and then a Channel 4 series called 24 Hours in A&E, which follows people coming in and out of the accident and emergency centre in a hospital in London. and they're really sad, but also beautiful moments of people's lives, because suddenly you realize what's important, and you're surrounded, the person who's been injured or whatever is surrounded by their family, and it's just, it's a beautiful program. And then we sort of go into their backstories about, what sort of led them here, how long they've been married to their partner, why their children mean so much to them. And it's, it's a way into those stories. And I absolutely love it. It's a real privilege.
Well, it's giving people a voice. And I think I like how you kind of had said, allowing somebody's story to be told who otherwise wouldn't be heard, really. What, if you were to kind of look back over the past few years, is there anything that's really gave you kind of an aha moment in the sense of like, wow, I mean, not only putting things in perspective, but just that you rocked your world a little bit?
In terms of documentaries?
Yeah. And in terms of, we'll say that story where you were like, I felt a part of that person's life. I felt that connection.
There was, because I often make documentaries over a period of, years sometimes. So sometimes they're 6 months, sometimes they're 2 years. I work, I get to know the people I film very, very well. And sometimes they continue to be my friends and still are. And I worked on a film about traumatic brain injury in young people. And there was a lovely young lady in that film called Tai, and she we interviewed her and we followed her story. And then on the night that it was being broadcast on television, she invited me over to her house with her family and her friends, and it was really lovely. And there was a moment in the film which she hadn't told her mum about, but it's where she sort of opens up about how quite soon after the injury she felt suicidal. And really depressed. And I sort of saw this moment where her and her mum looked at each other while we were watching, and that was the first time she'd heard her daughter say that, and it was really touching. And and I'm in that privileged position where people will tell me things that they don't, they don't want to burden their own family with, but we can help that communication happen, organically like that. And and that led to them having a conversation, talking about it, and healing, I guess. So that was a beautiful moment. I thought, this is right.
Stuff. I mean, part of it is as intimate as it gets in terms of that emotional component.
I think the camera, the more that I've been shooting, personally, the camera acts as a really good distancing tool. So I've been in surgery, which, and I'm not very good with blood, but I had to film a lot of surgery. And I thought, oh God, I'm not going to be able to, stand up for 4 hours and watch this. But actually, when you're looking through a camera lens, it's almost like watching it through TV yourself. You see it on the sort of the screen, and it's a really useful way to just say, oh, I'm not here, I'm not in this room. But also, I just feel like I can't complain, because when I'm filming with police officers or paramedics or people who are actually saving people's lives, I'm like, what am I doing? All I'm doing is following their amazing work and getting to reflect it, for a bigger audience. But I'm not doing anything that's worthwhile. They are. So, it feels like I can't complain very much. I can't complain about the long hours, and I can't complain about, the trauma that I've seen, because they do that every day.
Yeah. But you're giving them a voice.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, it's just, that's my favorite thing about my job, actually, is I get to work, when I'm doing things about, domestic abuse or crime, whatever, and you think that could be so upsetting and demoralizing, but actually what shines through are those people who are working all those hours for such low pay every day, and they are standing up for those people. And I love the fact that I get to show them off to the world and give them a bit of, a shout out, and, in whatever we can, help them, boost their support, show the government that we should be funding projects like that, because I don't think people realize. And when you see someone on TV and you see their heart and you see in their eyes that, they're working for a good cause, you sort of, you empathize with them a lot more.
And I think that's kind of like a very positive of social media and the media in itself, where you're like because it's easy to complain about things. I mean, we see it every day, negatives, but you're bringing some tremendous positives to the table, where it's saying, I was talking with somebody about this yesterday, for those people who are really warriors and championing for causes that are just out there every single day, and they're fighting and they get tired, increasing pay, finding ways, and I think on a mental health level, providing the support system if they're going through trauma, from what they've seen, because that has a ripple effect. Absolutely. Right? And making sure they're in a good place, because I think when it's very easy from the outside to say, well, it's their job. And what are they really doing?
And they signed up for it.
And they signed up for it when, I mean, like, but did they? You know, because, you know, when you're going through training and university and whatever, it's different from when you're doing it for any career.
And really, what, you know, who can withstand, you know, seeing whatever images
Every
of
single
child
day,
abuse or people dying every day? Like, that's not something we're kind of built
I don't think
for.
we're wired to, and I do believe we're in a different day and age with social media and different things changing when we're getting into, you know, human trafficking, and we're getting into, you know, domestic violence and murder and all these negatives that somebody has to pick up the pieces from. And it's like, I mean, I spent some time working with a friend of mine when it came to human trafficking and, you know, pedophiles. And it was something I could not do. And I pray for those people on the front lines, but I'm not wired. And there's people out there that I believe we need to do a better job supporting. Absolutely. That are keeping our kids safe, that are keeping our community safe. And it's, I applaud you for bringing light to things and to people who are like, I say modern day warriors, you know, I mean, that's like, I think, you know, I mean, I couldn't do what they do.
Yeah.
And, but there's mental health repercussions, and that's where, you know, I do think we need to do a better job.
You know, we're always making films that are a bit on we're observational documentary makers, but we do, you know, do a bit of investigative stuff as well, in terms of, you know, if we make this film, we could get the law changed, or we could raise awareness about this, or MPs could debate it in Parliament. That's certainly on our agenda. And in terms of me personally, I have volunteered for lots of charities over the years. Rethink Mental Illness is a big one here in London. I've helped with some of their big projects for young people in particular, because I think, you know, I personally struggled with my mental health when I was at university, and I think that's a really, really difficult time for lots of young people. You know, you're away from home, you've got lots of things going on, and my brother has had OCD and depression for sort of the last 7 or 8 years, so that's always been, you know, a huge part of my life, something that I've always been working to try and change, to find better treatment options. You know, he was on a specialist waiting list for 3.5 years, which is unacceptable. You know, you can imagine how much worse you get when you're on that waiting list.
That's in 3.5 years. That's
for a level 4 OCD specialist, yeah. And even then, you know, he was only allowed 30 sessions, and you know, you just have to keep applying to get it extended, and and that's kind of actually where the Mind Explorers came from, in a way, because whenever I hear about new mental health treatment options in the news, my ears prick up, and I think, okay, well, this could be it. You know, this could be a breakthrough. And psychedelic medicines have been on that sort of periphery for the last few years, and there's been some really positive trials in London over the past few years that have, they've essentially taken 20 people with what they call treatment-resistant depression, people who've had depression for 10 plus years, tried at least 3 options available on the National Health Service, and they've given them psilocybin, which is a psychoactive compound that's in magic mushrooms, and I think about 70 or 80% of them went into remission immediately.
Wow.
And some of them had lasting effects for 3 to 6 months or longer. So, I mean, it's a very, very small trial, and they're doing bigger trials now and around the world. There's ones going on in America as well, but that was a sort of, it's a good starting place. So I spoke to a neuroscientist who was very positive about the future of psychedelic psychiatry, he calls it, and he introduced me to the UK Psychedelic Society, who run retreats in the Netherlands, where sort of almost anybody can sign up and pay to go and take magic truffles in the Netherlands, where they're legal, you know, and see if it changes them in a positive way, basically. So that's what the film's about.
Which when you sent me the link, I go, oh, this is it. I think it's so funny. I think about when we talk about psychedelics, the first thing it's usually met with, like, you know, somebody that's tripping, and it's like this, you know, you've got, and why would you do that? And I know I had said to you before we sat down, I think, you know, most in the UK, most in the States, would have no issue going to the pub and having 3 or 4 beers, and that's socially acceptable, even though it could be self-medicating, compared to being open through research and to things that are alternatives. And I think when it comes to mental health, I was really impressed by your documentary and then your article with the HuffPost, because it wasn't just, this is what I'm observing. You know, you kind of allowed yourself to go through the experience, and there's positives and negatives. I know you had shared in your article with it, but that in just a short amount of time, giving alternatives to people who have no other alternatives, have tried every option, I think is only fair. Right. I'm not saying, you know, just, you know, popping some mushrooms and by yourself, but I really liked, you know, with where this retreat where it was supervised, they went through the positives and the negatives. There was support, and you kind of processed it after. But I do think on a mental health level, we do, in a responsible way, I think, have to be open to other options.
Absolutely. I mean, LSD was actually invented in the 40s or 50s, and immediately used as a treatment for mental illness, and that sort of very quickly went away. And you know, people were using it recreationally, and things sort of got out of hand, and the government and the war on drugs, etc. They just put a blanket ban on not only it being used by the public, but on it being used for medical research, which it is crazy, really, because we can research lots of other drugs, but we can't research psychedelics at the moment.
Just kind of similar to marijuana, how we've like put a black mark on
just
that.
Said, no, absolutely not. It's got no medical benefits at all. And what we're finding now is that actually it has, but it's taken 50 years for us to get past that red tape of just being able to use them in very small trials. And again, you know, there's people that I've met working on this documentary that think it should be absolutely legalized for recreational use and and there's people who say, you know, it should only be used in a very specific medical setting for those who absolutely need it, who have tried everything. And you know, I don't know what the answer is. I did the retreat myself as a participant because it was a sort of prerequisite of me being allowed to film. It was sort of part of the trust building process, and also because, which is fair enough, you know, they didn't want me to make a film about something that I hadn't truly experienced, because it would be very difficult to understand it, and even now I can't really understand it. It is sort of indescribable, and I've tried my best to describe it, but I can absolutely see how there's a famous scientist here called Robin Carr Harris. He's sort of a leader in this field, and he describes it as shaking up the snow globe. So if you imagine that your brain is a snow globe and all the snow is settled on the ground where it is, and then taking psychedelics is like just shaking it up, and the pieces just land in a different place. And that is kind of what it's like. You're just given a whole new perspective, like a radical new perspective. Like it feels like you've gone to another universe and come back. And for someone who's living every day with the same habitual negative thinking patterns of depression or an eating disorder or PTSD or whatever, that could be really helpful, even if it's just for a few hours, you know. And people describe it as it being, you know, they had the worst experience of their life and their best experience of their life within a few hours on these drugs. And I mean, that's a very, very high dose. Lots of people will have taken psychedelics and think, oh, that didn't happen to me. But there's, you know, that you take a high dose on these things and you take a high dose in the medical trials. But you're also encouraged to have a very inward experience. So lots of people may have taken them partying, and that's a very outward experience. That's sort of, you might see the visuals and things dripping off the walls, but the healing element comes from looking inward and, you know, having an eye mask on and going within your mind and seeing what's there, and, you know, and having things revealed to you that you may not have, you know, that you may have buried in your subconscious, which, you know, for some people could sound really helpful and healing, and to other people it could sound like an absolute nightmare. And you know, I don't think anyone should do it if they don't really want to do it, because I don't think you're going to have a good time. But if it's appealing to you and you think you could benefit it from a medical perspective, then, you know, I think the research is really positive.
And I thought one of the comments you made in your article about how, you know, people go in and try to do this, you know, for change and going forward with certain things, but how you can have this experience, but that ability to make change happen is up to you, like taking action. And I think that really comes to many, many things in our life where we can have this amazing experience, enlightening experience. Well, then it's kind of just,
what do you do after that?
What do you do after that? It could be left behind, or we could go forward and allow it to change things.
Absolutely.
Right.
And that's the same with therapy. You know,
Mm-hmm.
people have described taking psychedelics as what we normally see in 6 years of therapy in 6 hours. Okay, but but that's not. I mean, which could be great, but again, it's you need to keep it up. You need to cultivate it.
Right.
It's not just a crazy experience that you just let, you know. And it heals you. It's like CBT or any kind of therapy. You need to keep it going. You need to form the new habit patterns in your mind. Otherwise, it's not going to be implemented into your day-to-day life. So it's just another tool that could be an option.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm very much like an advert for psychedelics now, and I'm not. You know, I'm just anything that is a potential. You know, the FDA have just called it given it breakthrough therapy status, which is quite a big deal. So more research is happening. If it can help a few people, that would be amazing. You know, mental illness is incredibly debilitating for some people, and if there's anything that, you know, could stop the worst happening, then that's great.
Right. And it's, I believe with mental health, we have people that have it, like it's invisible disability, you know, that I can't see. It's kind of like your ankles are chopped off, and how am I going to manage and get through the day when everybody sees you as fully intact? And I believe that there are some wonderful alternatives out there. I do think when it comes to mental health, it's something we take seriously, and going to our doctor and dialoguing and learning, and not just kind of popping something in our mouth and experimenting. But I do think there's a lot more options out there. I do also think on the other side, medicine can do wonderful things. I think we've kind of gotten locked into relying solely on meds in a lot of cases. And I've seen time after time where the education's not there, the dialogue's not there, talking about family history and addiction's not there. And then we fast forward and you have somebody, you know, struggling with a mental illness who is now addicted to something. And again, not all that, but it's like we have to really measure the positives and negatives, be educated, informed. And I think dialogue and your documentary does exactly that. It gives that platform for somebody to think about, be educated about. And I say good on you for allowing yourself to be a participant, which not everybody would do, and then kind of informing people about it. So I want to say thank you for really giving a voice to so many people. So many people. Keep doing what you're doing. And thank you for letting me track you down and hang out in your flat and do this taping. So I want to say thank you from the United Kingdom, and to all my listeners, peace, love, and goodness, my friends. If you enjoyed today's show, I encourage you to visit goodnesschick.com and sign up for my newsletter, providing insights and encouragement just for you. Thanks for listening, my friends.